I think the spirit of this Sunday morning is apropos of Diana Nyad's swim. It feels very like we're sort of floating through on a water's edge. Dreams are the text of today. Dreams, to have or build up dreams in the midst of life's journeys. Whether we choose those journeys or are thrust upon them, we should never lose sight of dreams. Diana Nyad had a dream, and she had the sight of it. To be the first to swim from Cuba to Florida, and here's the important part, without a shark cage, just in the open water. Now, Diana Nyad didn't just create that dream out of nothing. She was a swimmer all her life. She raced, she succeeded, she was on track to be an Olympic backstroke swimmer. And two things changed that for her. One was the abuse of a stepfather and of a coach. And the second was an infection of the heart. So here's a successful young 14-year-old girl. She moved from New York to get away with her family from the abuse of a new stepfather to Florida. And she's on her way to being an Olympic swimmer. She is taken into care of the Olympic Hall of Fame coach, Jack Nelson, when he molests her and takes advantage of her. I believe this fundamentally changed her life. Now, this is not a story of turning abuse into success. It's a story of never giving up. She went on to win 3 Florida state championships for backstroke. And as she prepared for the '68 Olympics as a swimmer, she got an infection of the heart, pericarditis, which moved her from being a speed swimmer to a long-distance swimmer. Her life path was changed forever, but she never gave up. She went to college, she swam in college, and it was the early 70s. I imagine a fairly wild time. She got kicked out of college for jumping out of a 4th-story window with a parachute. But she was a person with an unconquerable spirit. And she built the dream to swim the distance. In '75, she swam around Manhattan. In '79, she swam from the Bahamas to Florida, 102 miles. At age 28, she attempted the 110-mile swim from Cuba to Florida. Imagine that. Sharks, jellyfish, currents, wind, all the enemies of the goal. Not to mention going in a straight line, for which they developed a pole with a streamer that she could follow as she swam, and at night it had a couple of little LED lights because they couldn't have lights in the water. That would attract sharks and predators. She made 4 failed attempts over 36 years to do this swim across the Strait of Florida. And last year, she did it. Dreams. Dreams that carry us through all kinds of challenges in life. Not the kind of dreams we have at night, but the kinds we have in the day. For Nyad, it was swimming this dangerous, impossible path. And she lived to tell about it in that TED Talk I recommend to you. In a sense, almost a perfect sermon unto itself. I have a great challenge to expand on it. But there are two parts in that talk that choke me up every time I see it. We watched it here on Wednesday, and I almost burst into tears. I had to compose myself at those two moments. The first is the sense that we don't accomplish dreams alone. She describes the boats. She's created a team of 30-plus people around her to help, shark experts and all kinds of people, navigators and captains of boats and swimming coaches and physiologists, you can imagine. And she's standing on the shore in Cuba with the Cuban flag, the ocean in front of her. Florida, 110 miles ahead, and before the first stroke, she looks out, and there in the boats are her teams, fists raised, saying, "You can do this. You can do this." Those blessings of others that tell us that we can do this are precious. And God bless you if you are a father or had a father who told you you could do this on today as we reflect on fathering. That you can do it blessing is something we can give each other. I can't tell you how many times I have sat by the bedside of someone diagnosed with a disease, or holding the hand of someone who had just lost a loved one, saying, "You can do this." And I hope I have been a blessing in that way. For I have certainly received that blessing in my life, not the least of which when I rolled out of the Preston drop-off on a 2,300 solo mile ride on my bicycle, and friends and staff and all kinds of folks showed up, fists raised. You can do this. And some rolled out with me for a mile or two, and some came 40 or 50, and some 75, and then I was alone. Except I wasn't, because I knew you were there, and those of you who sent encouraging messages through the blog, all "you can do this" blessings. I knew that I wasn't alone, and I'm sure Naiad knew the same. I had not built a bicycle from the materials up, although I had put a bicycle together. I had not created the roads. I had not cooked the meals that people gave me. The same way Naiad had not built the boats or created a GPS system or become a shark expert. She did this on the account of so many. And in that moment in her talk, "You can do this" moment, I felt it. One member of our Wednesday conversation said, to find oneself in the line of support of a dream is just as good as being at the point of a dream. Those fist-raised team members take joy in helping the dream become fulfilled, and we too, who help so many fulfill their dreams in all kinds of ways, can take joy. And then there is the loneliness. Naiad doesn't go into it much, but on her journey, at one point, she is in the middle of the ocean, swimming for 3 or 4 days, the shore behind, nothing ahead, looking down into the deep firmament of the ocean and up at the brilliant sky. The loneliness she calls awe. God's creation all around her, knowing, I assume for a moment, that she recognizes her small, small place in the midst of it, that she calls awe. To me, that awe can overpower us or empower us. When we get that real sense of what a small drop we are in the ocean. And it reminded me of a moment in Moby Dick, in the great American novel by Melville, when the young boy Pip, who is not prepared to be alone in the ocean, jumps out of a little whaling boat where he's not supposed to be. He's supposed to be safe in the ship in the cabin, but he's given an oar and he's told to follow the whale. And as soon as they harpoon the whale's tail hits the bottom of the boat and Pip jumps out, unprepared, and the boat sails on following the whale, connected to a line and a harpoon. And there in Melville's amazing novel, Pip bobs up and down in the vast ocean, no ship around, nothing to see. And Melville writes this: in calm water, to swim in the open ocean is as easy to the practiced swimmer as to ride in a spring carriage ashore. But the awful lonesomeness is intolerable. The intense concentration of self in the middle of such a heartless immensity, my God, he says, who can tell it? Mark how when sailors in the dead calm bathe in the open sea, how closely they hug the ship and only coast along her sides, but not Pip left out in the middle. Pip saw the multitudinous, God omnipresent coral insects that out of the firmament of waters heaved the colossal orbs. He saw God's foot upon the treadle of the loom and spoke of it. And therefore his shipmates called him mad. You see, in Melville's story, Pip loses his mind. He loses his grip on himself, overwhelmed by the greatness of creation with his small understanding of himself. But he is unlike Naiad and unlike us. He is a boy, unprepared for such a journey. And even when we are thrust into journeys of our own, thrown into the middle of the Florida Strait to swim, we must know that we are not alone. And Naiad is not only not alone, she is prepared. She has practiced. And so in the vastness of the ocean, she sees awe, God's foot on the treadle of the loom of the universe. Not madness, but groundedness. To be in the middle of the ocean, untethered, takes a kind of person that I think not only Diane and Naiad is, but we are. You see, we can practice spiritually for the journeys we choose. We can also practice for the journeys that choose us. Sometimes in life we are airlifted and dropped into the Strait of Florida. A death of a loved one, a diagnosis, a tragedy, seeing our lives or our children's lives going in unanticipated directions. These are moments we may not choose to be out on that journey, but we know something about. And when we are on those journeys, it is worthy to remember that we are not alone, that we can do it, that our dreams carry us far, that we are never truly swimming alone. Last year on my bike journey, 1,000 miles in and 1,000 ahead of me, a knee that wanted to fall off, the monotony of the road, I did what she said. I sang songs the whole time. I counted pedal strokes. And I knew in a way that I was not alone, even in the loneliness. And those who reminded me to follow my dream were my salvation. So Naiad on the brink of arriving on the Florida shore, 95 miles and almost 40 hours of swimming behind her, takes strokes in the pitch black, not able to see anything, looking down into the firmament below. She does what anyone on a journey does. She becomes disoriented at times. She says in the TED Talk, she hallucinated at one moment saying, "How did they build the Taj Mahal in the middle of this great ocean?" She has been through an exhausting physical feat, and she has failed so many times. She has been through a life of challenges, and she has transformed those challenges into a dream that when we meet her in this clip in the video, she is 15 hours from shore. The pain, the past, the suffering drop away, and she enters that focused state with the dream among her. Now we know she arrives. She says it is sweet to arrive, but she echoes the sages of all time that it's the journey more than the arrival that matters. The journey, the reaching for the horizon, not the arriving of the goal, not finding comfort in whatever small part we play in the great drama of life, but the journey, not the destination that matters. To be truthful, I wish it were otherwise. I wish arriving at the goal once and for all was something to celebrate, but I know that once we arrive, we begin again and again. She confirms what I felt on my solo cycling trip to the east, that arrival from the journey can be a little let down. I know that well. Once I arrived and conquered like Naiad, having recited my arrival speech over the miles of pedaling, I sat on the steps of the church with 2 or 3 friends, not a great crowd, and had nothing to say. The journey is where the transformation takes place. It's not the arrival. It's what happens while we travel. It's where the character is formed. It's how we take the challenges in our lives and transform them into dreams. It is where we bob in the vastness of life and embrace the smallness of our lives and say it matters. In that, we become more grounded, more purposeful, more compassionate, more generous, more willing to be of use to others. Now, I said there were 2 parts that choked me up, and the first was, "You can do this." And the second was a simple statement she made when she stood on that stage and said, "I am 64 years old, and I can tell you I am in the prime of my life." It challenged all of us in the limitations we put on ourselves based on age. One thing is true, is that we all age. But if we allow the limitations of that to define us, we have lost the dream. People in this church have taught me this over and over. I was thinking of one member I buried some years ago, a man many of you knew. His name was John Wilson. He died at 87, and just a year before he died, I would see him out here going out to his car, and I'd say, "John, what are you up to?" And he'd say, just going to climb some mountains in Peru." Men and women in this church, in their persistence over the years, have taught me about that notion that we never give up, we never let our age limit us. Naiad's motto is, "Don't ever, ever, ever give up." And my motto is, "Don't ever stop." Or "keep going," which was the motto on my ride. To be is to do, she says. Chase your dreams at any age. Never give up. It's never too late. And know that when you achieve your dreams, it's who you have become that's important, not the goals that you have achieved. Naiad took a life of abuse and disappointment, a life of illness and changes in her life, and formed out of it a dream. She was dropped so many times in the middle of the Strait of Florida, metaphorically. And then she transformed it into a literal journey. From weakness comes strength. From challenge, hope. And despite the odds, not ever giving up comes to us when we know it's the journey, not the destination, that hold and teach us. But we have to know what our dreams are. And that's why on the back of the order of service, I wrote down 2 areas for you to reflect on. One is the biggest life goals you have. What are the significant milestones? Traveling to the ends of the earth, finding the perfect soulmate, writing a best-selling novel, dying without regrets. What could they be? The biggest goals. And then as a reminder that it is never about those goals, but always remembering the small things along the way. There's a section there to write. What do you not want to forget as you strive for those goals? Time with your daughter or son or significant other, nurturing relationships with friends, finding free time to play. What could they be? And if you fill that out, put that paper in a safe place to remind yourself that one of life's biggest journeys, one of life's biggest challenges is enjoying the journey itself instead of focusing obsessively on reaching the destination. Friends, it is time to swim, to reach for that horizon. Amen.